All right, today we are diving into a true cornerstone of Montessori education, the famous three-period lesson. Now, it might sound a little official, but I promise you, it's one of the most simple and profoundly effective tools you can have. We're going to break down exactly what it is and how you can start using it like today. So, let's start with a bit of a puzzle. When you picture a Montessori classroom, what do you see? Probably kids working quietly, super focused, right? A lot of the lessons are actually presented in total silence to help the child really focus on the materials. But that kind of begs the question. In a place that values silent work so much, how on earth do kids learn new words? So here's our game plan. First, we'll touch on that silent classroom challenge. Then we'll introduce the three-period lesson as the solution. We'll walk through how it works, step by step, share some really crucial tips for getting it right, and finally, look at why this is about so much more than just vocabulary. Well, the answer to that silent classroom puzzle is a very specific, very intentional tool. It's this elegant framework that was designed for exactly this purpose, teaching language clearly and respectfully. And that tool is called the three-period lesson. Fun fact, it was originally created by a physician named Edouard Seguin, and then Maria Montessori saw its genius, adapted it, and really perfected it. Its whole purpose is just to introduce a new name or a new idea in the clearest, most digestible way possible. And here is why it's so brilliant. The lesson works because it follows the exact natural way our brains learn new things. It breaks the whole process down into three really distinct steps. First, you're just receiving information. No pressure, just taking it in. Next, you practice recognizing that information. And only when that feels solid do you move on to the final step, recalling it from your own memory. This simple progression is the secret sauce. So how do you actually do it? Let's get practical. When you strip it all down, it's really just a simple three-step conversation. The three periods are naming, recognizing, and recalling. Each one builds on the last, and each one has its own super simple prompt. Let's look at each one. Period 1 is naming. This is all about the introduction. You take a single object, and you just state its name clearly and simply. This is blue. That's it. The child's only job here is to listen and absorb. No pressure at all to repeat it. Then you move to period 2, which is recognition. Now, maybe you have a few objects in front of the child and you ask them to find the one you name. Show me blue. And here's the key. They can prove they understand just by pointing or picking it up. They don't have to say a word, which takes all the pressure off. Finally, when you are totally confident they've got period 2 down cold, then and only then do you move to period 3, recall. You point to one object and you ask, "What is this?" This is when they get to pull that new word from their own brain and say it out loud. Now, there are a few little pro tips here to remember. Periods 1 and 3, that's the naming and the recalling. You always want to do those with just one item at a time to keep it super focused. For period 2, a great little trick is to start by asking for the last item you introduced, because it's the freshest in their mind. And, mix it up to keep it fun. Give me, point to, touch, put this in my hand. It all works. Okay, so you get the theory, but we all know that moving from theory to practice is where it really counts. So let's cover some absolutely essential tips for making this lesson really sing. We're going to look at 6 key tips that are going to help you master this technique and make sure it's a really positive, amazing experience for both of you. Okay, first, timing is everything. You have to wait for the child to show you they're interested. Second, make sure they've already mastered the material itself before you add the words. They should already be comfortable with the objects. Third, start small. 2 or 3 new words is plenty. Fourth, reinforce it casually. Check in later in the day. Fifth, remember this works for anything, not just colors and shapes. And maybe most important of all, stay relaxed. This is supposed to be a casual conversation, not some high-stakes presentation. Okay, this is the big one. This is the question everybody asks. You say, "Show me blue," and they confidently hand you the red one. What do? Do you correct them? Do you panic? Well, the Montessori approach is very, very clear on this. The golden rule is incredibly simple. You just go back one step. If they make a mistake in period 3, you just warmly and smoothly go right back to asking them to recognize it in period 2. If they're struggling in period 2, you go back to just naming it in period 1. There is no correction, no oops, no sign of disappointment. You just reset. It's no big deal. It's really all about reading the situation. If a child just isn't focused, the best thing to do is say, "Let's put this away for another time." If they seem genuinely confused, that's your cue to go back a step. And hey, sometimes they're just testing you. And in that case, you can just play along casually, maybe even turn the tables. Keep it light. So now that you know the how, let's zoom out a little bit, because this method, this little 3-step dance, is about so much more than just learning vocabulary. The real beauty of this method is just how unbelievably versatile it is. I mean, sure, it's great for colors and shapes, but you can use it to teach animal names, plant names, letter sounds, numbers. You can even use it for more abstract concepts like math ideas or grace and courtesy. Think about it. This is what a respectful voice sounds like. Can you show me a respectful voice? And that really brings us to the absolute heart of this whole thing. This is not a quiz. It's not a test. It is a tool for connection. The entire point is to share knowledge in a way that is respectful, that is supportive, that builds a child's confidence, and that isolates the new information so they can actually grasp it without any fear of getting it wrong. So you see, the 3-period lesson is so much more than a teaching technique. It's really a shift in perspective. It challenges us to stop and think about learning not as this series of tests you pass or fail, but as a series of respectful, engaging conversations. I mean, just think, what would change if we approached all learning that way?